Here's a question you haven't heard before. Is church a boat or a boathouse? Is church a boat or is it a boathouse? This video is for you if you've had any church experience at all, good or bad, past or present. If you're a skeptic or a seeker, these next few minutes will help you see what the real church is like. And churched or de-churched millennial, many of you have attended church events as really spiritual consumers. This boat or boathouse analogy could reboot your view of church. And if you're a believer, be prepared. This might seriously challenge your status quo. But don't watch this with some preconceived idea of what I mean. What I'll be saying is not for and not against any church model, megachurch, small church, or house church. A recent survey reported that many people who go to church have no real connection with the other people there. Jesus said that the world would know we are his disciples by our love for one another, or in my words, by our unlimited co-liability. That's a glue that binds true believers together. That won't happen by just showing up at a weekend event with a bunch of people you hardly know. And don't be mistaken. Turning to some stranger next to you on Sunday morning and saying, "God loves you and so do I," is really just silliness. That survey I mentioned was unfortunate in another way. Unfortunate because it reported on people attending church rather than on people being church. That distinction, attending versus being, is at the heart of confusion about church today. Attending gatherings of the church, the real church, is important. However, the focus should be on being church. So is church a boat or a boathouse? That's the question. Is it a boat or is it a boathouse? For centuries, actual boathouses were built along the deep water shorelines of lakes and rivers. Originally, their construction was driven by function, to maintain and repair boats. They were crude structures, nothing fancy, just improvised framing covered in low-cost materials. A boat entered the deep water level of the boathouse to be serviced, maintained, and repaired. As an example, a sailboat's torn mainsail could be laid out on the upper servicing floor for mending. Then, when fully repaired and reassembled, the boat could once again sail the lakes or rivers. Those early boathouses existed solely to attend to the needs of the boat. However, there's been a boathouse evolution over the centuries. An example of it, an early primitive purpose-driven boathouse, is one found at the mouth of the River Gloy. That's Gloy, the River Gloy in Highland, Scotland, south of Inverness. Do an image search. You'll love it. It's little more than a half-sunk two-story Quonset hut with deep water access. But at the other extreme, I'll mention two modern-day boathouses. One is an Ivy League University state-of-the-art 22,000-square-foot boathouse on the banks of a New England river. And the other one is an elegant boathouse bed and breakfast along Millionaire's Row on a beautiful lake in the mountains of upstate New York. Many of today's boathouses have evolved into exclusive enterprises with coffee bars, restaurants, and social activities. They no longer service boats, but really only provide a place for visitors to dock their private speedboats while accessing the boathouse's nautically themed facilities. To understand this boat or boathouse analogy, you need to see that the boathouse, represents many of today's church facilities. And the boat is the body of believers, actually the people. And this will help. Consider the Hobie 16 sailboat. It's as thrilling to sail today as when first introduced by the Hobie Cat Company. It's a seriously fast, fun, and challenging boat. It produces an intense adrenaline rush. It's beautifully designed and built to sail, to really sail. Catching the wind in its mainsail, jib, and spinnaker propels it up on one pontoon across a white-capped lake. Imagine that. Sailing it is exhilarating. Much more so than sitting in an upscale boathouse lounge, sipping a frappuccino with a bunch of people you barely know, while watching a broadcast regatta on oversized flat screens. Now, imagine disassembling a Hobie's parts: sails, rudder, mast, trapeze, trampoline, blocks, and halyards, and then distributing them throughout a lakeside community. Then, once each weekend, those commuter parts come together in the boathouse's second-floor hall. They assemble in orderly rows as a gathering of disconnected parts. But they're never assembled into the sailboat they were designed to be. At the end of the hour, they scatter again to their homes, and they wonder why they never really got to sail. You see, that's a picture of many churches today. The parts of the sailboat, the church, the people, that is, are never really assembled into a functioning boat and never venture out on an exhilarating sail. They assemble, but are never assembled together. Their boat life, is really only a boathouse life. You see, the boat is the church. The boathouse is not the church. The boathouse is a place where the boat comes for regular maintenance and repair. The church house is the place where the believers come for regular servicing. Servicing, not just services. Who does the servicing? The 4 kinds of maintenance men described in Ephesians 4. Apostles, prophets, evangelists, and pastor-teachers. They're there for the equipping of the believers for the work of ministry, for sailing. That's the job description for the boathouse maintenance crew, to equip and assemble the boat. And remember, the parts of the sailboat, the individuals of the church, aren't designed to simply sail alone. Disconnected parts often just float downstream with the current. It's easy in today's church culture to be boathouse-centric rather than boat-centric, church house-centric rather than church-centric. Let me say that again. It's easy in today's church culture to be boathouse-centric rather than boat-centric, church house-centric rather than church-centric. When we become boathouse-centric, our boathouse starts calling itself the boat. And we do too. We start calling the church house the church. We speak of attending boathouse rather than speak of being boat. What I mean is we speak of attending church rather than being church. And then we often measure success by the size of our boathouse campus or by the weekend commuter body count. And we cease to measure success by nautical miles sailed and storms conquered. Too often, our boathouses have become commercial enterprises with coffee bars, nautical book and trinket stores, and semi-nautical activities. Then, sadly, our boat seldom sails. The Hobie 16 is a great analogy for the church. Each is masterfully designed, each has many parts, and when their parts are assembled together into one, and when each part does its part, both the church and the sailboat sail beautifully. You see, Jesus is the captain of our boat. The sails catch the wind of the Spirit and propel the church across the stormy waters of life. The assembled boat does need regular maintenance, and the boathouse should be a great place for that to happen. But the boat was designed to sail, to really sail. It wasn't designed for just docking at the boathouse every weekend. And the boat is a boat 24/7, not just for 1 hour each weekend. You see, you can attend a boathouse, but you cannot attend a boat. You cannot sail a boathouse, but you can sail a boat. I hope this analogy has made you think about church. This isn't about different church models or the institutionalized church. It's intended as a challenge to your view of and experience in the churches you've attended. And this analogy is really just descriptive, assessing the problem, rather than prescriptive, offering a cure. However, the prescription for all of us is to become believers, grow as disciples, and become part of a community of disciples as Jesus builds his church in the wake of our obedience to the Great Commission. When you think of the church, Think of the real church of the New Testament. Seek to be part of that kind of church body. And don't just be a spiritual consumer attending weekly events at a boathouse. Be part of the boat. Be part of the real church. I'm John Morris. I'll see you on the next Just a Question.